See, because the thing about success and really going to the next step, it's oftentimes not what to do, it's what not to do.
I had the good fortune to meet our next speaker several years ago and work with him in one of our masterminds, watch him go from, came into our 2014 Traffic and Conversion Summit is a big event that we run for marketers every year, for digital marketers. And I met Sam initially, as I recall, and he and Deanna will correct me if this isn't accurate, through Deanna, who brought him and said, we were looking for people who would help us sell our mastermind at Traffic and Conversion Summit. And Sam and his partner at the time came and sold for us. And then he went on to be a part of another mastermind where he had this crazy idea about representing real estate agents and having them get to keep all of the money, 100% of the commissions from the business. And at that mastermind, he said, I'm thinking about this crazy idea. And nobody said that he was as crazy as he thought it might be, is how I remember it. Again, he'll correct that. This is the story as I understand it. Therefore, it's my truth. Okay. Has the benefit of also being true. So he then opened that real estate brokerage, consistently ranked in the top of the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies, while also, unlike many of those companies, making a wonderful profit as well. He grew it to be one of the top 10 independent real estate brokerages in the country. They did about $6.2 billion in sales last year. He is super, super passionate, a wonderful, nice guy, and also a fellow sneaker and watch collector. Kent was hating on watch collectors. I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with it. And also I had the good sense to sit down with Sam at an event that he was putting on in Coronado and say, you should have me be part of your company. I am not shy about telling people that they should have me be part of their company. I said, you should have me be part of your company. And we wrangled and finagled for over a year about doing that. And finally, he had the good sense to give me equity in his company and make us business partners. Since then, we've acquired several companies. We've acquired Facebook groups and all kinds of other things. He's going to share some of that with you. But we're now in a very, very, very big $6 billion plus play. And that's through a roll up. And I'm going to let him share all of that and his story. But super, super awesome guy. Let's give a big hand to Sam Khorramian.
How you guys doing today? That it? Guys, I drove like an entire 5 minutes to get here today. Can I get a little more energy? I said, how you guys doing today? So Roland gave the very condensed story of how we ended up working on several billion dollar exit. So with your permission today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we ended up working together, because I think that is one of the biggest parts of the lesson. Two, some of the things that happened along the way. And three, how we're putting together this new plan that we're really excited about that should help us make a few $1 billion. Is that okay with all of you? So I'll start by saying my biggest secret to success is I buy my friends. Serious. I buy my friends. Well, all of my friends, I'm Persian. So like all of my friends went to college to be doctors or attorneys or dentists or whatever it was. And I spent all of that time in seminars and in masterminds. And everyone laughed at me while they were going to get their degree. I was building relationships and I was learning how to shortcut my way to success. And I don't really believe there's any shortcut to success other than relationships. Can we all agree with that? Right? I mean, there's hacks, there's tricks, but really the only true shortcut to success is relationships. And as Roland said, Deanna and I, before Big Block days, 15 years ago, Deanna would hire me to bring sales to an event. So I would work at the back of the room and help them convert stuff. And I knew about the infamous Roland and digital marketer. I never had the pleasure of meeting him. And I go to TNC. Has anybody been at TNC? Okay. If you haven't, you're totally missing out. And I see Roland, and immediately I get my man crush. Can I tell you why? Okay, for the three of you that care, I'll share it with you. Has anyone else noticed that Roland just has that super happy rich man glide? You know what I mean? Like, the guy just never phased. It's like he's not even walking. He's just like hovering over the ground, always smiling. And I'm like, I immediately knew that I needed to be connected to this guy. What that means to me is I need to buy his friendship, right? Because that's to me, like I said, the number one secret to success is buying your friendship. Because why in the world would Roland want to give me time when he has the opportunity to work with a bunch of great people like you? So we joined the mastermind that he was running with really one main goal. And then the obvious goal. The obvious goal was join a mastermind, learn some cool things, learn some tricks, grow our business, scale our business. The second goal, which is really the first goal, was that no matter what, we were going to make Roland love us and want to be our business partner. And we went into that very intentionally with that purpose. So we went and, 2 years after being in the mastermind, we ended up landing on the Inc. 500 list, 26th fastest growing company in America. Then the next year, 31 fastest growing company, then 33. We were in the top 50 of the fastest growing companies in America for 4 years in a row. And all of a sudden, Roland started to pay a little bit of attention to the guy that always sat at the bar and always wore a hat. And fast forward, he starts talking about verticalizing into different businesses. And so I invited him to come speak at my office one day. We're doing a little mastermind. I said, hey, Roland, we live in the same city. It'd be great if you could come and just share with the group. So he comes over to our office, maybe 30 minutes from here in Mission Valley, and I'm giving him a tour. And we walk by, and I remember this is the moment that my life changed. This is the moment I'm about to share with you today. We're walking through the office and showing them all around, and we pass by a room that's probably about half the size of this room, completely empty with a bunch of cubicles. And he's like, whoa, what is this? And why is it empty? And I said, well, funny you should ask, Roland. Before we met you and were a part of the war room and really learned everything that we did at Digital Marketer, our company's growth was primarily focused or built upon dialing for dollars. So this room used to be our sales floor. I had people that were just literally pounding the phone day in and day out, setting up appointments for us to recruit agents. But because of the things that we've learned from your business, your teachings, your masterminds, we no longer need that because almost all of our recruiting is done online through the digital things that you guys have taught us. And I saw the little sparkle in his eye, right? Oh my God, I think I got him. So fast forward to a couple weeks before the event he was talking about in Coronado, he calls me and he says, Sam, I really think that we should explore the opportunity for me to be your business partner in what you're doing. I'm really, impressed, and I think I could add a lot of value. I'm on speakerphone, my business partner on the phone. We hang up. I'm like, yes. Like touchdown dance happy, right? Like we made it happen. This guy all of a sudden is interested in what we're doing. And this is a big deal for me because I barely graduated high school. I went to college for about 5.5 minutes for one reason, which was parties and girls. I guess that's two reasons, but generally they happened at the same time. So a guy like me in my mind was not the type of dude that would end up being business partners with someone like Roland. So that was just the fact that he was interested was a big win for us. As he explained, we went on and negotiated for a while and ended up bringing him on as a partner of the company. And through that process, there's been countless times where I phoned a friend. See, because the thing about success and really going to the next step, it's oftentimes not what to do, it's what not to do. It's oftentimes when you feel like you're up against the wall and you just found out your business partner stole $300,000 from you, the first thing that a Persian-blooded man like me wants to do is pull out a gun and make a very bad decision. But instead of doing that, what do? I phone a friend. And countless times this man has talked me off the ledge, helped me fix my problems with insight and intuition and guidance. And fast forward, we've bought a lot of companies together, and my life is completely different today than it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I was just the guy working at his seminar. So I say to you, for those of us that come to these events, sitting in the chairs that you're sitting in today, you're here for a reason. And I know that reason is because you want to grow your business. And I know that for most of us, a part of you is thinking, man, like if I could just have someone like that in my corner, imagine how everything will be easier. Imagine how much faster I can grow. And I am the product of you're damn right. And you're not that far away from that. It's a simple conversation and deciding to go deeper. See, when I joined the mastermind, I probably joined a little too premature. But it all ended up working out. So the interesting thing, and this is something that you guys are all in this room for a reason. You guys understand this. When you're trying to grow your business, everybody wants to give you advice, right? All of your friends want to give you advice. No, you can't do 100% commission, or you can't do this, you can't do that. But there's very few people that can give you counsel. This man is my counsel. This is, obviously I did the work, but he laid the roadmap, right? He paved the road, and everywhere that I want to go and everywhere I want to be, he's been before. So it was really easy for me to drop my ego and just say, let's let Roland give us some advice, and we don't always have to be right. But the thing about me is I came out the chute a special type of crazy. What I mean by that is I knew from a very young age, even before I remember remembering it, my mom would tell me, ever since you were a little kid, you're like, I promise you I'm going to be a billionaire and I'm going to buy you everything. And I came out the chute that way. I say that for two reasons. One, I know that I'm going to be a billionaire. I just didn't know how. And you either come out the chute a special type of crazy, or you have to put yourself in the environment like you are today to manufacture that level of craziness, to actually believe that you can achieve the things that you want to achieve, even though the rest of the world will tell you why it can't happen, the hurdles you're going to experience, everything in between. So for those of us that have these wild ideas, the first thought I have for you is very simple. When you're talking about taking your business to the next level, when you're talking about your big, crazy ideas, like I said, I want to be a billionaire so much, I have 3 commas tattooed on my hand to remind me every single damn day that I am going to be a billionaire. When I say that to most of the people in my world, they think I'm crazy. Which brings me to my first point for you. Don't ever allow someone to tell you what you can or can't do. You want to know why? Because they're not crazy as you or crazy enough as you to believe that it's possible. Do you understand what I mean by that? Like, all of you have the ability to come up with these great ideas with the right resources, the right relationship, and the right environment. Don't ever allow someone to tell you that you can't achieve what you want to achieve, because they are different. Those people can do what they want to do, but people like me and Roland and Kevin and Kent and the other speakers and Deanna, all of us believe that we can. We're crazy enough to believe it's doable, and we do it. So that brings me to kind of telling you about how we're setting up for a $6 billion exit. Is it okay if I share that with you? Can I tell you how we're also setting up for a $6 billion exit without paying any money to buy any of the businesses? Even better, can I tell you how we're doing it by actually having the businesses pay us to acquire them. Would that be okay with you? All right. So as we started to end up on the Inc. 500 list, as you could imagine, the phone starts to ring, right? Private equity, VC, competitors, everyone, 3-4 times a year, we get approached by someone that wants to buy us. And I believe it was Roland, but in my earlier days, someone told me, hey, as soon as I got on the Inc. 500, people are going to start calling and they're going to want to buy you. Even if you have no intention of selling, you always take the meeting because you'll always learn something. And I want you to go into those meetings with full intention and integrity, but I always want you to ask them, well, if you're looking at this sort of valuation, what does my business need to look like to give me this sort of valuation? So then I can go back and work on those steps to take us from a 10 million or 100 million or whatever it is to several $billion exit. Does that make sense? So always take those meetings, because your cockiness, your ego-ness, your pride, the love of your business will oftentimes tell you, oh, I don't want them to think that I'm willing to sell. But the strategist says, I'm going to go into that meeting and I'm going to suck every single piece of knowledge and information that I can so that I can manufacture the business that they're looking for to help me get what I want. Is that real with all of you? So I take these meetings. I probably have done 30 or 40 of these meetings. But then the one happens. The one that changed everything. This is probably about, at this point, probably closer to 12 months ago. I get a phone call from a private equity firm. And he's like, hey, we're buying 6 of the biggest 100% shops. We have you 100% commission, like Roland said. We have you pegged as one of the best. Are you interested in selling? My answer is always the same. Hey, we're always open to meetings. We really have no interest in selling. But if there's enough zeros behind the number, anything is an option. And I always say that to them, by the way. If there's enough zeros, anything's an option. So I take the meeting and go out to Denver to meet with this gentleman. It was us and the 6 other companies that he's buying. And I go to the meeting and I'm blown away, but not in a good way, in an interesting way. And I remember walking through the hallway, pacing around on the phone with Roland. And I say to Roland, I'm like, dude, this is very interesting. What this man is doing is he's buying 6 of the biggest 100% commission shops, and he's paying us a multiple that ranged from 5 to 7x. Most real estate companies trade at like a 3 to 5x. He's buying all these companies, he's merging them, and he's immediately going public. Did you know that real estate companies trade at a multiple of close to 30x? He's like, yeah, I did know that. I said, what's interesting to me is, one, he's buying us at this and immediately going public and getting that. That's really cool. But what's really interesting to me is this guy has never been in real estate. This guy is very unlikable. Like, I cannot imagine working for him, but I got to tell you, Roland, those zeros look pretty nice. I'm thinking this is the deal. And he said something that at the time went right over my head. Because mind you, this is like the meeting that happened after 3 months of talking on the phone. Why do I say that? My wife is already spending the money, right? She's already house shopping, boat shopping. She's buying entire jewelry stores, right? Like, my business partners are already riding off into the sunset. And every week, every day, my wife, my dad, my business partners, bro, what's up with the deal? Like, what's happening? And me and Roland are taking the lead on this, mainly Roland, and I'm just sitting there, So I kept saying to all of them, and it got really heavy and really overwhelming. I'm like, guys, if this deal doesn't happen, it's because God or the universe or whatever you believe in has a bigger or better plan for us. So please politely shut the fuck up and stop asking me. Like, I can't, the pressure was all on me. And those numbers looked really, really exciting. So back to the phone call with Roland. I say, man, it's really interesting. He's putting this together. He's getting this crazy multiple by going public. He's never been in real estate. He's very unlikable. He knows no one in the business, but yet he's managed to get the 6 biggest 100% shops at the table at the same time. And he's going to give us half cash and half shares and we go public, that other 50% will probably be 5x the first 50%. This is really exciting. And he said, you know what's interesting about that, Sam? I said, what? He said, imagine if we had someone that did know real estate. And imagine if that someone had really good connections in the space. And imagine if that someone had a personality that was somewhat likable and people enjoyed to be around him. Imagine what we could do. Right over my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be really cool. Like, man, I wish we had that type of person. Why? Because I had my blinders on and I'm just looking at these zeros at this offer. And to me, it went right over my head. So we come home, another month of negotiating. And the thing that is interesting about Roland, which is a good nugget for all of you in the negotiating process, Roland, when this year of negotiating to become our partner, he never made me feel the pressure or the pain. He never was like aggressive with it. He was always happy, very flowy. Like, so that's a big lesson. When you're doing these deals, be the type of person that they want to do a deal with. Did you hear that? Be the type of person they want to do a deal with. And Roland, that was one of my first lessons when he was trying to work with us, is he never made me feel like I had to make the decision tomorrow. And he continued to always add value. He'd call me and say, hey, well, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? So he did not want us to take this deal, but he was being very Roland-y about it. He's like, yeah, let's explore it. Yeah, I'll negotiate it. And man, you hear this guy on the other end of the phone negotiating with someone, your jaw's on the floor. Like, he took us from this valuation to that valuation to future this. He's using words I never heard of. All I know is the number keeps getting bigger and I keep getting happier, right? So we finally get the final term sheet. We meet with him just down the road a little bit, and he's pretty much begging us to not take the deal. He's like, dude, I promise you this is not the right time. We're in hockey stick mode. Like, we just started franchising, all these different things. Like, if you guys want to take it, it's fine. But I promise you it's not the right time. And we all promised each other, me and my business partners, that we were really going to take Roland's advice and run with it, even if we didn't like it. So that meant for us what? We're turning down the offer. It also meant that I'm cussing Roland out on the drive home. Like, I was really emotionally attached. I was too close to the deal. But what did I tell you guys that I kept saying to my wife and my business partners and my dad? If it's not this deal, it's because the universe or God or whoever or whatever you believe in has a bigger, better plan for you. Turn down the offer that day. No joke. Less than 8 hours later, I wake up in the middle of the night with my aha. Like, holy shit. And I'm like, okay, well, we could do this, we could do that. And I'm doing the math and I'm like, man, this could be a $2 billion play. Wake up the next morning, and funny enough, me and my business partners every quarter have an executive retreat where we go rent a beach house, we disconnect for 2-3 days, and all we do is mastermind and work on our businesses. So that day, the next day that I woke up, we're driving up to the house, and I sit down with them and I'm like, dude, I think I figured it out, guys. And I share with them the idea. And what do you think? All of us, I have one minority partner that runs a business with us and another 50-50 partner, and then Roland. Us three, what do you think the first thing that we said was? Well, let's phone a friend. Call Roland. And I think he was in London at the time, if I remember correctly. This man answers my phone while he's probably sipping like $20,000 bottles of champagne. He answers my phone and I'm like, dude, tell me that I'm crazy and we shouldn't do this, or tell me that I'm crazy and we're onto something. And I tell him the idea and he says, I'll tell you what, you're crazy if you don't do this. This is going to work. This is the real deal. And he says, well, call Grant. Grant's his attorney and now our attorney. He's like, call Grant, get Grant's opinion. Call Grant, same thing. Man, this is a really damn good idea. Yeah, you should do this. So now we knew we were onto something. Can I tell you what the plan is and now what we're under in the process of putting together? Is that okay with all of you? So if we think about the prior deal with Denver guy, unlikable guy, there's two friction points, two challenges for the buyer and the seller. For me as the seller, I have to sell at today's EBITDA times a multiple. Everyone get that? Regardless of any of his value add in terms of resources and money and all the things that he would potentially bring to acquiring the business, our EBITDA is probably going to be 2 times what it is in the next 24 months. So he gets to buy us at today's EBITDA times the multiple. Roland did some negotiating to get us some future pacing or whatever it's called. But the friction point is like, we're still growing and he gets to buy us relatively close to today's EBITDA. The other problem is I have to work for some jerk that I don't want to work for. And there was a 3-year in the term. Originally, I think it started at 5. Roland got it down to 3. I had to go work for this guy for 3 years. And I remember telling my wife, I'm like, dude, I can't work for this guy, but those zeros, right, I could probably do it. But I didn't want to do it, right? I didn't want to go from being my own boss to working for some guy that I really didn't like. I actually did not like him. I liked the offer. I didn't like him. And then the other problem for the buyer is capital gains, which we'll talk about in a moment. So what's the problem for the seller? He had to have hundreds of millions of dollars to put this deal together. He has to put his money on the line, form the deal, convince a bunch of people, put out a bunch of money. So it's challenging to a degree for both sides. Do you guys get what I'm saying by that? So I'm thinking about this process and I say to myself, okay, well, I think we landed at like a 6 times multiple. The average publicly traded real estate company trades at a 31 times multiple. The average pre the past 6 months, pre-recession, I want to say the average amongst all verticals or all industries is 26 times multiple. I'm like, damn, well, that's a big point. 31 times versus 6 times is being rich versus generational wealth. You guys get that, right? And I was like, well, what he's doing is he's ultimately bundling EBITDA. He's buying it, he's packaging it, he's taking it to Wall Street, and he's going to make his money. And he's going to pay everyone a bunch of money to do it in terms of buying the companies. Well, what if we went and we bundled? Originally, the idea was 100 million. Today, because of, and I'll share with you why, now the target is 300 million of bundled EBITDA. Instead of going to, what's your name? Demetrius. Instead of going to Demetrius and saying, hey, Demetrius, you own a real estate brokerage. You have a $1 million of EBITDA. At most, the market's going to give you $4 million. I'm going to give you $2 million cash now, $2 million on earnout, and you're going to have to work for a guy that you probably don't want to work for. Instead of doing that, I could go to him and say, hey, you have $1 million of EBITDA or $10 million of EBITDA. I'm going to go over the next 24 months and we're going to collectively bundle $300 million of EBITDA. In the next 24 months, I'm not taking any control of your business. You still are growing your EBITDA. You're still completely in charge. There's some formalities of like reporting your numbers and all that stuff that we can get into if you guys care in the Q&A section. But now I'm going to go bundle $300 million of EBITDA. And if we take the 300 million of EBITDA and forget the national average for real estate companies being a 31x, forget the 26 as the average amongst all industries, assume that all we get on that going public on the IPO is a 20x. Does anybody know what 300 million times 20 is? $6 billion billion dollars. So for Demetrius to be a part of this, one, he has to sign a letter of intent. He's agreeing to participate, but he has to give me a $25,000 non-refundable deposit. So I've effectively brought him into this. He's paying me $25,000 non-refundably a part of it. Now you're going to say, well, what do they get? What do you get? Well, very simply, myself, Roland, and the partners are taking a 30% management fee for putting this whole thing together. What's 30% of $6 billion? 1.8 billion bucks. Buying the company, zero money out of pocket. Getting them to give us a $25,000 deposit and creating a true win-win scenario. Because Demetrius, if he sold on the streets, is going to get 3, 4, if he got lucky, $5 million. Now I come to him and say, hey, dude, how's a 20 million minus my 30% management fee? How does that sound? Are you guys starting to put this together? So before we have any paperwork, although Roland and Grant were like, wait till we get everything ready before you call someone. What did I have to do? I had to call someone and pitch this. Like I had to know, is someone going to say yes, or are they going to tell me I'm crazy? So I'm consulting this lady. I call her and she runs a brokerage and her husband's on the phone. They're married, but he's not a partner in the business. And I say, hey, this is what I'm working on with Roland. She knows Roland. I'm like, I run her the whole thing. And I said, is this something that you think you want to be a part of? And she says, Sam, stop it. I'm like, what? She's like, I'm not even going to ask my husband. We're in. My only question for you is, why didn't you think about this 2 years ago? I'm like, damn, I'm onto this. So now I'm like, I got to make another call. Call the next person. This guy has a $4 million of EBITDA. He's in the process of selling to a competitor at a 5.5x. I give him the pitch. 2 business partners. Both of them like, hot damn, Sam. Yes, we're in. What's next? Like, what do we have to do? Where's the paperwork? And I'm like, man, I'm onto this. So I make another phone call and another phone call. I have yet to have a company say no. Yet to have a company say no. I will get someone to say no, and I'm going to assume it's for one of 2 reasons. One, ego, right? Ego's, I think, the biggest killer of all deals. And 2 is probably someone that's just so analytical that they talk themselves out of the deal, which is fine. You know, my business partner's analytical. We're like yin and yang. I talk in grand sweeping statements. We're going to buy the world. He's like, well, how many pennies is that going to take? And he's got to pull out the little calculator. But that's my intuition, is that people will say no. And it's probably because of ego, or it's probably because they're just too what ifs. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Like in every deal, there's the what ifs. Any questions on any of this so far? And then I'm going to pull back the curtains on some hacks that we've learned along the way to find more of these people, what I call Trojan horses. Roland? 83 million in about 4.5 to 5 months. Guys, I'm not saying this to like pound my chest. Like I have really not even tried yet. Like once we, and I'll tell you what the first step is. Once we do the first step and we're ready for like public noise making, the amount of noise that we're going to make in the market and the collective of everybody that's in this making noise, we're going to rattle the cage in the industry. Roland again. It's like 1.6 something billion. Yeah, 1.660. So yeah, we're already, if we get nobody else, 20% of 1.6 billion, what is that, 320 million? As my good friend and business partner and mentor always says, every 320 million counts, right? And I'll tell you how I have no doubt that we're going to hit the 300 million. Let's go over here. Where's the...
So I get that you're doing this, but I'm curious, is there any like integration or post-integration strategy as part of this at all?
Great question.
Or is this just a national expansion?
Yeah, so let me color in a couple of things. We're buying 100% shops that will all eventually merge onto one brand. We're buying split shops, meaning traditional brokerages, 80-20 split, that'll all merge into one brand. We're buying settlement services, escrow, mortgage, title. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to meet with a mortgage company in Orange County that says he has $9 million of EBITDA. So it's a holding company of all of those. Once they sign the paperwork and we essentially launch, 2 things. One, this is where Roland and Grant take over. I'm just going to be the mouthpiece and go sell, and they're going to cross the T's and dot the I's. But the game plan as it sits today is every quarter for the next 2 years, they're going to submit to us their financials so we can know where they're at. And if at any point we decide, Demetrius, it looks like you're going the wrong way, we're going to politely ask you to not be a part of the collective. He'll get his $25,000 back. But if he gets his head on a swivel and goes somewhere else or decides to back out, his $25,000 is non-refundable. So every quarter they'll be submitting their financials. In 24 months, all the companies will merge into one holding company. We will run for about 12 months. Again, this is a Roland and Grant thing. It looks like we're dancing around 8 to 12 months where we will run with one holding company that holds the different businesses and have that financial blueprint so that when we do go public, it's not like we just, put a Lego set together and now we're trying to sell it to Wall Street. So effectively what we're looking at, if everything is as it looks like today, it's 24 months of bundling, 12 months at the 24 months, we all merge into one holding company. 12 months after that, we ring the bell. And if Kent was in here, I'd just make fun of him. Go buy a lot of cars, a lot of watches, probably a few jets, and make a bunch of smart investments.
So 2 years of buying the EBITDA, and 2 years of running as an integrated.
2 years of bundling EBITDA, 1 year of running under one holding company together. So a total of 36 months.
Okay, and then IPO.
Okay. But we will start the, and Roland can correct me if I'm wrong, we will file our S1 right after we merge. So we'll probably file our S1 around 24 to 26 months from now. We'll get our comments. That whole thing will take about 12 months. We hire, I guess what they're called, market movers or something. No idea. That's why Roland's my business partner. There's a lot of things that we have to do in that 12-month period. And then ideally in 36 months, we're ringing the bell and we're on that big screen on the side of the NASDAQ building.
So I have two questions. So you're buying as an option to buy, right? You're not outright buying these companies.
We're buying them as a collective roll-up.
Roll-up, okay.
They are putting that deposit. So if they decide to change their mind, they can. They're not getting their 25 grand back.
Yeah.
If we decide that they're no longer a good fit, we will refund their $25,000 deposit.
So from my understanding, once you do a roll-up, there should be someone has to run for a certain time frame, right?
Yeah, so that's why we're going to, in 24 months, we'll merge into one holding company. I'm not certain yet. At that point, I will probably step down as CEO. And again, I'm going to let Roland and Grant make this decision. We'll probably hire a C-level suite of Wall Street friendly, people that probably don't always wear hats and have tattoos and everything everywhere. So there will be a new C-level suite possibly. And after we've run for those 12 months and actually have the numbers as one holding company, we will we will go public at that point.
So the legal wise is that I'm not sure this piece. The escrow companies can be on a one parent company.
Escrow companies can
be on a one parent company, on the realtor as well as the escrow company.
Yeah. So right now I own a brokerage. I own an escrow company. I have interest in mortgage, property management. We're already doing that. Just to answer your question on the legal side, not that it matters for this case study, a licensed agent doing a transaction can't double dip on their own transaction. Meaning if I'm selling her home, I can't get paid as the owner of the escrow company a commission for that. But as the owner of the company, regardless of what happened, I don't even have a license, by the way. So my brokerage or our brokerage, we have a hired broker of record. I don't even have a real estate license. I get paid a salary, I get paid consulting, and I get paid distributions. But to answer your question, yes. And there's a big company out there called Realogy. Realogy owns Century 21, Coldwell Banker. They own a bunch of escrow, mortgage, title, settlement services. They're probably the biggest holding company in the real estate space.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Let's go back there real quick. Oh, okay, there we go. Long pass. No, I was just trying to make the pass easier, but I'm all for someone taking it to the head on accident.
This the baby head. Hey, it's the dad bod sin. So totally blew my question out of my mind now. But so you said they have to report quarterly on their financials. What other things do they have to do to stay inside to qualify?
Not go backwards, or if they do go backwards, we have a minimum threshold of 1 million EBITDA to be able to participate. Naturally, there might be some outliers. Like I have a company I haven't even told Roland about. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's very innovative. It's a tech play in the space. It'll be a big part of the industry in the future. At that time, they may or may not have $1 million of EBITDA, but we certainly want to own that tech in our holding company. So there might be some outliers, but they have to have $1 million minimum to participate, quarterly submission of their financials. We have not yet decided the time frame, but before the 24 months, before we all merge, the 100% verticals and the split verticals will all merge into one brand.
Okay.
So there'll be 100% brand and a split brand.
And the owners of these brokerages are agreeing to stay on board to run their own businesses still?
Great question. So there's a few things here. Are they agreeing to stay on? Yes and no, right? What I mean by that is all of them so far are like, hell yeah, let's go public and continue to grow this thing. We're going to work out the details, but the way I've been positioning it, and Roland, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, they have to keep a minimum of $250,000 of salary for themselves that does not get added to their EBITDA or anything, so that if they decide to leave, we have that $250,000 pre-built into replacing them if they end up riding off into the sunset. The other thing is there's a 2-year cliff-ish, meaning they can't sell any shares for 2 years, and then they can sell a percentage of their shares every year thereafter. But earlier I talked about long-term capital gains, something I want to address. What I've learned is a lot of the wealthiest people really don't sell anything. They leverage it on debt. So if you have, like, let's say in Demetrius' scenario, he has $16 million of shares, he could go to Chase and become a private banking client. They'll probably give him about $8 million line of credit at like 2 or 3% interest only. So they can have the benefits of their net worth without selling it immediately. There's a 2-year cliff, and then they can sell a percentage of their holdings every year thereafter until they completely sell it or pass it on to their, kids or whatever it may be.
Cool. Thank you, man.
Yep. Let's go right here.
Thank you. All right. Sam, I think that's a brilliant idea. Like, I've heard you talk about it over the last year or so, from inception, and it's just grown and grown. It sounds amazing.
Thank you.
The question I had was, if I recall, it was smaller before. It was like 2 billion and now it's 6. Is that because you're finding it so much easier to have people put their hands up and say yes? Yep. Or did it go to 6 billion for another
reason?
There's
a couple of things that happened. One, the first goal was bundle 100 million or 24 months, whatever comes first. Then the recession hit, one. So now we're obviously going to time it for the next bull run. 2, it became a lot easier than we anticipated it would be. And if we have time, I'll get into some of the Trojan horse stuff that we're doing that I probably have another, I think, 80 to 100 billion on the sidelines that we haven't even pulled the trigger on yet. So it went from 100 million to 200 million to now, I think, 300 million. So 300 million times 20. I mean, look, if we get a 30X, now we're talking about $9 billion, right? We're already dancing at 6 billion, but at 9 billion, we're dancing a little bit harder. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks for asking. Let's go right next to you.
Yeah, just wanted to ask. So, is this all currently at the verbal stage? Like you're just literally making a phone call that you're not. They haven't have to sign anything yet. You're just sort of a relationship,
Verbal and letter of intent.
a letter of intent.
Yep.
Okay, that they can back out. Have they paid you the 25 grand yet?
They have not. And this is something that me and Grant have been working through, and something I had to pull up on Roland with. Originally, Grant was saying, if you take the 25,000, you have to hold it in a trust account, and that's going to cost you a bunch of money.
Yeah.
But one of his attorneys at his law firm has done this exact same thing before, and potentially now we have a loophole where we could hold it in a separate account and actually not touch it. But when we get, see what he said.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing, and you'll meet Grant tomorrow, and I love Grant. I was he was my law partner for several years. But Grant is great because Grant is an attorney, and the attorneys are not really supposed to think creatively. But so they don't, because they don't have to, and they don't actually get paid to. As a matter of fact, they're disincentivized to think creatively, because creative thinking can create malpractice lawsuits.
Yeah.
So a few of the things that to think about. One is the companies will be aggregated and sign purchase agreements relatively soon. Then there will be no back out unless we would allow it. They'll be committed. The deals will actually close and be done, but they'll be able to continue to be managers of their respective businesses, much as a division of a company would run on a separate P&L for that company. So we might have 30 people that are participating. We'd have 30 people that have PLs, effectively a company with 30 divisions. For a $6 billion company to have 30 divisions is not unusual. Prior to that, all of those companies are required to come onto our back office SaaS, which will automatically aggregate all of those numbers together. I think most actually of those companies are already on the SaaS.
Yeah, so that's one of the Trojan horses. We built our own SaaS company. Every brokerage has to have a back office to manage their brokerage, audit files. We use it for our companies, and we also sell it as a SaaS to other brokerages. So when a brokerage comes on to this platform, we immediately know to a good degree their financial blueprint. So once even if they don't know about the roll-up, once they end up being one of our SaaS customers, about 90 days later, they're going to get a phone call from me saying, hey, can I share with you how I can quadruple your company's valuation and you can have a really fun time with us.
But the cool thing is we'll already have all their numbers.
Yeah.
So in terms of filing a consolidated financial statement, it's kind of a press of a button, right? Now, the other thing is that we're accidentally growing that SaaS company to be pretty huge as a separate outside this deal company, and that will have its own valuation, but that's just kind of an extra booyah fun thing, right? But on the 25K, that isn't something that we anticipate will be any profit to us. We're anticipating that this will cost about $2.5 million to do between legal and investment banking fees and accounting. And so all we're doing is self-liquidating through the participation. And we're telling people that too. It's like, hey, this isn't to make a ton of money. And I already have a way to keep it as it comes and basically have it cancel from a tax standpoint. So we won't pay taxes on it because it'll come in and be spent at the same time. We won't have to escrow it. That's stinking thinking by attorneys. Just don't.
That's why you need Uncle Frasier in your corner. All right, next question. I think there was one right here. Can you throw him the box, please? And thank you.
I think you answered a lot of the questions, but how many companies are going to make up the consolidation to get to your goal?
You know roughly how many are on the 83?
I think we're at about like 12-ish right now. The goal is fewer than more.
So
I'm going to guess, now I'm talking to bigger and bigger IBITDAs as like people are connecting me to other people. So I don't know, Roland, maybe 30.
Yeah, I think 30 to 60.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're out there. So ideally less than more,
Yeah.
but maybe 30 to 60 could get us to that number.
But we'll also be thinking about who's got a good story, because what helps with stocks and supporting prices is the story of the upside. So maybe there's an AI company that we also acquire that can then be deployed across all the companies, and that creates a unique story for us. So we'll be looking at qualitative and quantitative factors as we make those decisions.
What he's
Got it. Yeah, so I was going to ask about how that the $25,000 fee is going to be used, which you answered. And then I guess the other question is, do you think that that $25,000 fee is going to cover that, or cover that 2.5 million or whatever it is, or you're going to have to make an additional investment?
We believe that that will cover it.
Okay, and one more question. So will there be consolidation once you do the aggregation of all of these companies, put them together to get rid of like the redundancy and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so post-merger integration will happen, but because of the promises that are made to the people, so that we keep a easy exit carve out for people if they don't fit, or if we find something that is a challenge, we'll be able to consolidate from a back office standpoint so we get the benefits of the roll up, but maintain some independence from a divisional aspect so that we can sever them without it costing us. So we call that the starfish method. So we can basically, if you cut a starfish leg off, it grows another one. We can do that.
Got it.
But that's a good point. Like, you know, we're talking about consolidating, like for instance, bookkeeping. So instead of every company paying $60,000, $70,000 for a bookkeeper, as a collective, maybe we can all spend $20,000 and bring it all into one management company, which is now another asset as well. So there'll be ways that we can support them in becoming more profitable through the process, and then obviously afterwards.
And so the bottom line is like the reason that I wanted Sam to come and share this with you is this is really the focus of where we're moving with our acquisitions to significantly larger deals that are roll-ups. Roll-ups are fun. They're also fraught with all kinds of challenges and complexities, but the baby brother or sister to a roll-up is called a tuck-in. And what I'd suggest that you guys start with is a platform company, which is a company that has an operator that you feel comfortable can handle and is into the idea of acquisition growth. It's got the infrastructure to support that, which is why for me, I like to have at least 10 employees. So you're going to want to have a decent HR department. You're going to have a decent accounting department. You're going to have decent operations, right? When you have a platform company, because this company is going to be used to acquire other companies. So it needs to have the ability to scale those functions across the acquisitions. And then if you acquire 2, 3, 5, 6 companies, that's still not really a roll-up. That's just tuck-ins or add-ons. And they can be across any of the 7 different categories on the acquisition wheel that we talk about. And that'll dramatically increase the value of whatever you guys have. Then the next step would be moving to something like this. So I don't want to get too lost in the minutia. You're asking great questions, but unless you're doing roll-ups right now, I think that focusing on platform, tuck-in, add-on, and then look at roll-up as the next thing that you do would be a good thing to do. But it's always nice to share with you the now and future places that you can go. Because to me, these are really exciting. And I mean, you don't have to be an investment banker to do a roll-up. All you have to do is be connected to somebody who has access to the companies to acquire. That's the easiest way to do that. Sam, when we were talking about hard to get along with guy, right? Way back when, and I was like, if we had somebody. This is the intent all along is, dude, go out and use your connections because people love Sam. He's well known in the industry, right? Partnering with somebody like that gives you immense credibility and really, to me, way harder. I mean, it's because it's not my thing is not going out and knowing a bunch of people in the real estate industry. So to me, that's the hard thing. For Sam, the hard thing is, what the hell is a market maker and how do you do that? And what's an equity collar and how do we, put this stuff together and protect against the downside and short sellers and get people in and all that? That's easy to me, right? So that's why that's a perfect combination. And same thing for you guys. If you can just go out and find the industry person we've got the back end. If you have the back end and want to find an industry person, then go out and partner with somebody like that. I am 100% a result, a product of strategic relationships. Kent said it, Sam said it, relationships are everything. That's how you make something like this happen.
Yeah.
So any more questions for Sam before we let him go, and anything else that you want to share with anybody? He's done a ton of deals. If you want to talk about smaller, no money, out of pocket acquisitions of Facebook groups or things like that, or deal generation. Got a question back here.
Did what he said. We did a lot of, as he calls, tuck-ins first. It's not like we went from like one company to let's.
Will you share a couple of those, Sam, just real quick? Just like how'd you find them, and what was the?
Yeah, so
structure?
one of them is a Facebook group. Actually, my business partner that is helped bring it together is in the room. Kevin, say hi. So Kevin and I, brothers, different mothers. He gets a phone call. Someone wants to sell the second largest Facebook group in our space. And obviously, we're interested for a lot of different reasons, but at its core, just building our personal brand, having more influence helps us get franchises, recruiting agents. For him, the same thing. He owns a brokerage. He has a lead gen company. So we wanted it as an asset to just amplify everything that we're doing. And I won't get into the details of the actual terms and how it all worked out. But we were able to buy it zero out of pocket. After negotiating everything and getting our final purchase price, what we agreed to was they wanted $20,000 down, and then the rest we got on terms. So they wanted the $20,000 up front. I learned from Roland. I was like, so you want a $20,000 advance? I'm okay with that. What we'll do is a deferred advance, which means that we'll give you the $20,000. I think it was 60 days after we closed or something. So we said, we'll pay the $20,000 60 days after we close. But before we closed, we went out and found a title sponsor that was going to be a sponsor in the group. And the pitch to him was, hey, normally we're going to sell a title sponsor for, I forget what we said, like $40,000 a year. But because of our relationship and because we're just taking this deal down, if you pay $20,000, we'll give you half off, and you can be the title sponsor of the group. So he gave us the $20,000. We got that before we ultimately inked the deal, even though we had the 60 days to pay them. We had that money lined up. So the money that we got from the sponsor paid our $20,000 deposit, and then the monthly payments on terms we were able to cover by just bringing in other affiliates and advertisers and things of that nature. So
that half off sponsor deal is something you should write down, because you'll forget it if you don't. That sponsors are so much better than investors. If you've gone through the program, you've heard me talk about that, because sponsors pay every year or every month or every quarter. Investors, you get one time, and then they also get to boss you around a little bit, right? Sponsors, you can say, thanks for the money. Once the time's gone, see ya if you don't like them, right? And get somebody else. But giving them a discount off of the fee that, by the way, you get to set 50% off today. Okay, what's the normal fee? How much do you want? I need $20,000. Great. The fee's $40,000 normally, right?
I mean, that's legit how
You
it went.
get to make that up.
We just needed $20,000, so it was worth $40,000, and we were giving him.
No, I mean, if it was crazy, it'd be hard to do. But I mean, you actually do get to set the price there. So that's thing one. Do you remember the thing that I asked you if you had done and you got a little bit frustrated because you're like, damn it, I wish I'd have thought of that on once you had the commitment from the sponsor, but you had a payment that was due to the seller?
No, I don't.
Okay. So I like that we have permission to tell them now.
Thank you.
So so basically he went out and got the sponsors and had a revenue-based financing deal so that when money came in from whatever he was going to do, do you remember now?
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell him.
So I think we had, what was it, like 24-month term on, I forget what it was a few years ago, on the balance. But we were able to go get sponsors, I think is what you're leaning towards, ahead of time. He said, well, you should have negotiated that if we pay you off sooner than the 24 months, that we end up getting a discount on the total purchase price.
Yeah. So like if it was $70,000, let's say, that was financed, and you go out and you get 70 and you go out and you sell 70,000 of sponsors. Now you've got the 70,000. So under the RBF, under the revenue-based financing deal, you would pay that 70,000 to them right away. If instead of doing it in that sequence, the sequence was, hey, let me go out and query my sponsors and see if I can get commitment. I'll get them to commit and sign a contract that says that this is the deal for sponsorship, right? If the deal doesn't go through, I can always give it back, but we know the deal is going to go through. It's just a question of what we pay when. Then you go to the person who's agreed already in principle to a payment of $70,000 over 24 months. And you say, you know what, listen, I've kind of looked right now, and I know that you really wanted this money all up front. If I could get you 35 grand at closing, because I think I might be able to put that together, would you take that? You would be amazed at how many times, probably 70% of the time, that they take that and you save yourself 35 grand right off the bat. You get to put 35 grand in your pocket and pay off the 35 grand that you owe them.
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
And he probably would have taken it. Whoa. He probably would have taken it because later on we learned that the reason he wanted to sell was because he just wanted to pay off his truck.
Which is why people do things, right?
True story. Like,
But remember that double tap is a big opportunity to save yourself a whole bunch of money. Yes, sir. Can we get the box? Well, actually, do we have a question back there? I know. Okay.
Byron Wolf, CFO AF and fractional CFO space. So you were talking about your back end systems. You like built the SaaS. Was that like, did you know that going into that process, or can you walk us through like how that came
we
up?
acquired that because we wanted to own a SaaS for our own business and didn't know if that was going to be part of the business or a spinoff later. But it just turned out that it was nice that we had it.
Yeah, we had the SaaS company way before the roll-up idea even existed. We were spending, this is another good deal that we did. This SaaS company already existed. We were spending something around $8,000 or $10,000 a month for the SaaS that we were using for our company. And we were able to buy this one. And in the terms we said, okay, because we didn't buy the whole thing. We bought a good chunk of it. We said, here's the terms, et cetera, et cetera. We landed on two things that helped us get it out of pocket. One, actually, we did put maybe like 10,000 down, something small. The rest was $8,000 a month payments, but our company gets to use it for free because he was still a partner. So
It paid for itself in the first month.
it paid for itself. Essentially, after X period of months, we paid off the seller financing. Instead of paying the other company, we were just paying him to buy a big chunk of the business. So effectively, we bought that thing for no money or close to no money out of pocket by just moving the dollar.
So we talk about E to P, turning expenses into profits. You can also E to I, you can turn expenses into investments that way. Because if you're not having to pay it as an expense anymore, but you can turn it into an investment to pay something off that you otherwise would have had as an expense, but you're building an asset instead, that's kind of a cool strategy.
Anything else?
I think we had one, Neo. Hang on just one second.
So I'm going to close the deal before I leave out of here by Friday with this group I'm looking at. So I got a question. Adam gave me a lot of game, but when you buy some of these groups, because I want to aggressively buy groups because media is becoming more expensive. So I'm buying Instagram pages, I'm buying YouTubes, I'm buying your email list, text list, all type of stuff. But one of these that I'm looking at, should I let them remain running it? Because now I got to train somebody up to run it. Like I'll just take 50%, let them continue to run the business. And then we going to get all the money I'm going to send for people who want to do advertisement on their page, similar to what y'all said.
I mean, we did that. We left there was two partners in it. We left one of them in for a small, Kevin and I control the group. But he stayed in. He was there from the beginning, the inception. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that if you switch super admin, that might trigger Facebook in some sort of weird way, because a bunch of stories. So we wanted to keep at least one of the admins in there.
No, we just board a group and we just removed her altogether. So
And it didn't trigger anything with Facebook.
no, we great right now.
So we were a little nervous about if that would or would not. So we did, but that's the only group that we've purchased.
So you have a couple of things to think about with that. You can, if you've got centralized media creation. So we, in a company that I've got with Chris Crone, we've got about 35 people on the team doing media. So when we're acquiring Facebook groups and media assets, we really can take care of the production unless it's personality based. If it's personality based, like, because there's Instagram pages that are like travel and real estate. There's no personality attached to that. But then there's Instagram pages that are, you, right? It's going to be hard for us right now. It's coming with Synthesia, but it's going to be hard for us to deep fake you, right? So we're going to want to keep a deal with you. So I think if it is a personality agnostic site, or the personality could easily be replaced by your media team, you're going to make a lot more money by having a centralized media team that's providing shared services to create the content. If it's personality based, then I think it's better to try to keep that person on and either transition them out over some period of time, usually 6 to 12 months, or just keep them, right? And you got a couple of options there. You can hire them and figure out what are they making right now. And usually it's not much. So you could double or triple that and they're just as excited as can be. You don't cut them in on the ads or anything like that. Or if they are really contributing and doing great things and growing fast, you could say, we're also going to cut you in for X% rev share on the ads or profit share on the ads. They're not going to continue to have ownership. You'll continue to build the value of the asset independently. No problem. We've also had no problem reaching out to our Facebook reps and consolidating groups. So if we have 4 groups around a particular topic, we'll just consolidate them into the one that's the best keyword search. And then all of those users come into one group and no problems there.
So you're saying it's better.
Can you talk into the box for people?
You're basically saying it's better to pay them and just keep them on versus letting them keep equity.
I don't like having other people have equity because they have minority ownership rights that can create challenges if they get difficult to deal with. And unfortunately, sometimes when you're very successful at showing them how they could have been monetizing before, and they're doing the math in their heads because they're looking at who the advertisers are and stuff like that, they'll get a little uppity and they'll say, hey, I'm really entitled to that. You took advantage of me, blah, blah, blah. And that's a potential liability that I would just as soon not have.
That's good. Thank you.
And remember, you can always cut them in. So it's like, if you're like, I feel bad, I got such a great deal on that. And I've actually done this many times and actually makes you look a whole lot better than if you're having to cut them down to say, look, you know what? You had a lot to do with building that. We just cashed out on that. We got a nice thing. Here's $100,000. And they're like, holy crap. Right. Instead of, well, my lawyer told me that,
What type of are there any contingencies you guys normally put in those type of agreements?
Contingencies as far as like if something happens then? Not really, because we buy 100% of the equity from them, right? So the only contingency would be that there's reps and warranties in every acquisition, representations and warranties. So there are representations that they haven't gamed the system, they haven't violated the terms of service, things like that. They haven't committed fraud. They indemnite us for any liabilities that come from any acts that were before the transfer of ownership. Those are all really standard though. So we don't usually have contingencies other than maybe a revenue-based financing deal where we're acquiring based on what are we going to be able to do to monetize, and they're only being paid if that happens. That would be a contingency.
How about non-competes?
Non-compete is generally something that we don't worry about because they can open up another channel and build that. They're not allowed to poach, raid, say bad things about, circumvent, hire people away, or any of those things. Those are all pretty standard clauses that we've got. We don't really want to stop them from going and doing something else. Like build another channel and we'll buy that too, right?
You don't think about the chances of them taking all the context that are there to start the other page with?
It's not easy to do, so we haven't had a problem with it. If it was something that happened, then,
And if they did, does it really matter? Because you still have their eyeballs, which is what you're buying. It's the bigger page.
Yeah, exactly.
A quick question with the consolidation of multiple pages, because that's a really good idea. Actually, I have a lot of pages. How are you nurturing them when you combine them? Like, are people lost? Like, hey, what's going on? I just come to this group. It's a new name. new
Yeah,
thing?
you would announce it as a positive thing.
Okay.
Hey, this is super exciting news. We were able to blah, 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 and then make your pitch. I have somebody like him do that.
Got it. Then secondly, when you talk about the sponsorships, how, like, where is it just a banner, or are you doing post, or what is that?
Yeah. So for us, there's different packages, but
It's actually really smart.
they got their name on the top banner. They got to do, I forget the terms of this one. He was allowed to do a live training in the group 4 times a month. We would interview him in the group a couple times a month. He was allowed to do X amount of static posts per month, all as a moderator badge, as opposed to just like a regular person.
But think about what that does. That creates all kinds of content that's super valuable to your people. And as long as you're careful to get a non-competitive sponsor that's not competitive to you, then yeah, right.
And you can also have your sponsors. So let's say I bring Roland in to do a training in the group. That live training is sponsored by. So in the promotion of it, the sponsor has their name on the graphic, kind of like in a podcast. Hey, got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Scalable, for helping us, put this thing together. Roland's going to share some knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. So really you look at it like display advertising, radio advertising, podcast advertising, all of that. Essentially it's eyeballs and ears, and you can just wedge a sponsor in between those things.
And affiliate. Can you see, if you guys have questions, Sam can see the chat. Can you read that? I can't, but I can put my glasses on and see it. If you guys have any questions from home or on the stream, just put them in there right now and we'll try to answer a couple of those.
It looks like comments as opposed to questions.
Okay. Comments are cool. Any more questions here? Deanna, can you come up? Any other questions here? Going once, going twice. All right.
We got a mic in a box.
There'll be last question.
So I know you mentioned that one sponsor reached out to you guys.
No, the seller reached out to my business partner.
Okay.
The sponsor, I knew. This guy was in the process of trying to build his personal brand. Very successful. The guy, he'll drop 20 grand at the table in Vegas in like 5 minutes. So I knew that for him, the $20,000 was not even going to be a question. And funny enough, I don't think he ever actually did anything in the group, did he? Yeah. I mean, he literally gave us the 20 grand and just, yeah. I mean, he barely showed up at all. He just financed it for us. And, we love people like that. God bless his heart.
Got it. So is there like any other acquisition or like lead strategies other than just messaging them saying, hey, do you want to sell the group?
Well, we've only done that one group. And again, that one fell in our lap.
Right.
But I would say, we talked about going deeper in this, and what we learned in this process is most people start groups for passion, not for profit. And people that started for passion generally have no idea how to monetize it. So they end up giving birth to a baby that turns into a teenager, and now it smells. And now that, they want to get rid of it, but they don't know how to get rid of it. So we show up and say, hey, that's how I would approach it. Hey, notice you grew this fantastic group. Like, have you ever thought about X, Y, and Z? And if you just did a bunch of DMs to the main admins, I'm sure that you would get people to say yes.
And I was gonna say, that's it, it's really a DM campaign to go and acquire. So we'll create the list. We'll have usually a VA build the list based on the acquisition criteria for the group. And then we'll just send out DMs to all those folks. And then the ones that reply, we'll have conversations with.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Let's give Sam a great big hand. Thank you so much.